Welcome everyone. I'm Tracy Fitzpatrick and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us here at Netcom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions. We are very excited to host today's event, GitHub Copilot Masterclass, your AI coding partner today's session. Presenting today's topic is Anupama Natarajan. Anupama has 2 decades of hands-on experience in cloud, Azure, AI engineering, data, and AI consulting. She is a recognized Microsoft MVP for data platform and artificial intelligence and a certified trainer. Anupama thrives on sharing knowledge and tackling complex business challenges using cutting-edge Microsoft technologies. Now, please bear in mind that this is an overview of a very robust topic. We offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored to your specific requirements. If you are interested in a further discussion, you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you'll get free access to the recording in the next 24 hours via email. Netcom Learning helps customers build innovative learning organizations by achieving a smarter workforce, adapting to change, and driving growth. We do this with a broad catalog of offerings, developing customized learning plans, and our global delivery capability. Since 1998, we have been empowering organizations with our managed learning services to help them reach optimal performance results and address challenges. We do have 9 practice areas in which we specialize. They encompass people, process, and technology training. Today's presentation is from the Data and AI practice area. Netcom Learning offers a comprehensive training portfolio of courses for the topic being covered today. Our upcoming classes include various trainings on the given courses. You can also access a variety of marketing assets, such as the free training and blogs, by clicking on the available event handout. These offerings can be found with a simple search on our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session will cover insights and practical experience in understanding GitHub Copilot and how it can be your AI-powered partner for faster, smarter, and more efficient development. In addition, participants will get guidance on effectively preparing for the AZ 2007 and AZ 204 certification course and exam in today's session. And now I would like to give you a quick overview of the logistics before we get started. To begin with, you do have the option to view in full screen by clicking on the full screen button on the right side of the GoToWebinar viewer. Simply hit the escape key to exit the full screen. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters. Feel free to submit any questions you have for the presenters here in the questions pane, and we will address them at the end of the session. And to get the best out of today's events, we've included the slides, courses we talk about, and marketing assets in the handouts section of your GoToWebinar viewer. You may refer to them at any time to get a better understanding of today's topic. And we do realize that some of you may have to leave early and want to let you know that as you do leave the session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to take a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience and improve our future sessions for you. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. And now I'd like to pass this over to our trainer to present today's topic. Hi, Anupama. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Tracy, and welcome everyone to the GitHub Copilot, your AI coding partner masterclass session. And I'm Anupama Natarajan, and you can call me as Anu. I'm a Microsoft MVP for data platform and AI, and also a Microsoft certified trainer with 20 plus years of experience working in the IT industry. And I've been living in Wellington, New Zealand, and I'm looking forward to discuss about GitHub Copilot with you all as part of this session. So let us quickly look at the agenda for today's session. So if you are new to GitHub Copilot, I'm going to introduce you to GitHub Copilot as part of this session. So you don't need to worry about like whether you have to have a prior knowledge about Copilot or GitHub Copilot. I will introduce you what Copilot is all about and what GitHub Copilot is specifically about. Then we will be moving around like how do we actually use Copilot in the context of getting coding suggestions and as well as getting it to write the code for you. So if you are a developer or I would say even if you are like a tester, GitHub Copilot can offer a lot of you in terms of improving your productivity. And we are going to look at aspects of that as part of this session. So some of the things I'm going to walk you through is like how you can provide natural language prompts in order to get the desired results from GitHub Copilot. So I'll be asking all my questions in plain text, and I'll be expecting GitHub Copilot to provide me the responses. And this is going to be really handy because we are not going to write pieces of code asking GitHub to just to do things. Here we are going to ask it to say like, okay, can you write me a function in order to calculate the addition of two numbers? And that's it. I'm going to write this in plain text and we will get to see how GitHub Copilot is going to interpret that and give me a response. So a lot of people think GitHub Copilot is all about like I can ask it to write code and it is going to write code, but it can do better than that. So for instance, like if you have an existing code and you get someone coming and telling you the code is not performing. So what you have to do is you have to get into the aspect of like, okay, I need to look at what are the issues with the code. Why is it not performing? You will be able to do that with GitHub Copilot. If you want to just refactor an existing code, GitHub Copilot can do that. So whether it comes to fixing issues or optimizing your code or refactoring your code, we can use GitHub Copilot for those aspects too. And we will get to see like how we can achieve that with a few examples. And finally, like I'm going to also explain to you around the Copilot chat and how you can use GitHub Copilot as a pair programming tool. So I think a lot of developers are aware of the concept of what we call it as pair programming. So where two developers, they work together in order to get into an outcome. So for instance, like I can sit with a developer. So we start writing code and the other developer can just start giving me comments saying, okay, Anupama, you have to refactor here, refactor there. So it is more around making the code more evolving and also like more writing more highly performant code. And that's what pair programming concept helps with developers. But assume like if you have, you are a developer and having a Copilot as your pair programmer. So that's going to be fascinating, right? And we will get to see that like in terms of how we can use GitHub Copilot as a pair programming partner. Finally, I'm going to wrap up the session talking about GitHub Copilot extensions and a bit of customizations and things. And also like there is going to be a series of demos as we are going through and also some best practices in terms of how do you get most of the value out of GitHub Copilot. So if you want to learn more about GitHub Copilot, there are quite a few references which I'm going to point you out towards the end of this session. And yeah, make use of these reference links because with the time I have got, I will cover as much as I can. But I always recommend that there is always lots to learn about when it comes to GitHub Copilot, and these reference links will be handy for you. And we will wrap up a few things in terms of recapping what we learned through our Q&A session. Okay, so without any further delay, let us quickly get into a quick introduction about what is GitHub Copilot. So even before I get into GitHub Copilot, let me explain what Copilot is all about. So Copilot is nothing but it is an AI chatbot. So when we talk about AI chatbot, it is basically like a assistance tool. So when you ask a question, then Copilot is going to provide a response. And we all know it is going to have a chat based interface. The reason for that is because if you ask a question, it is going to give you a response. But if you ask a follow-up question, it still holds on to the context, like what was the previous question asked, and it is going to appropriately tailor the subsequent question's answer according to that. So that is really clear. but also a little bit of history with Copilot. Copilot is an AI chatbot which Microsoft developed, right? So how did Microsoft develop Copilot? So OpenAI is the organization. They created what we call it as LLMs or large language models. So you would have heard the terms like Chat GPT, or you would have heard terms like the GPT-4 models and so on. So OpenAI was the organization who actually developed these models. So Microsoft entered into a partnership with OpenAI. So which means like Microsoft will be able to leverage this GPT-4 models or any models that are created by OpenAI and host it on the Azure platform for the Microsoft customers. And that was a great win-win partnership between OpenAI and Microsoft. So as part of getting those access to those GPT-4 models, Microsoft also did develop what we call it as Copilot. This is the AI chatbot. And if you have noticed, I think we are talking here about GitHub Copilot, right? But there are other Copilots also which Microsoft have developed. So we have got Copilot for Word, Copilot for Excel, Copilot for PowerPoint. We have got Copilot for Power BI and so on. And what is Copilot in this case? So Microsoft, they created this AI chatbot and they have embedded in each of their flagship products. So that's why like you have different flavors of Copilot where the Copilot is going to behave understanding the context of that tool. So when it comes to GitHub Copilot, it is the same concept. So GitHub Copilot is an AI powered code completion tool. So mainly aimed towards improving developers' productivity. So if you're looking at it like the main advantage of using Copilot is to improve developers' productivity. And how can we use it to improve developers' productivity? So what developers do pretty much they write code, right? So they write code, they write unit tests, they try to troubleshoot issues. And this is where Copilot, especially the GitHub Copilot comes into rescue for the developers. So it is going to act as a personal assistant and it is going to help the developers with a lot of tasks. So it will help them to automate repetitive tasks. It is going to generate documentation and as well as it is going to help them to fix issues with their code. So I want to briefly quote an example of where GitHub Copilot will be really handy. So I want to give this example from my career itself, right? I took a job as a software developer. This is my first job and it was quite interesting. So when I went to this job on the day one, they told me like Anupama, like you will get to learn by supporting application. So we are going to give you an application for you to support. So I was so happy because I was excited because it was my first job, right? So I got access to the code and also like the first thing I was asking them was, can you provide me some documentation on this particular application? And they looked at me and said, yeah, sure. And I think that's what we have given. And I said, I have got a piece of code here, not a documentation explaining me what the code does. I said, like, oh, if you read through the code, it will tell you what the code does, and that is your documentation. I was fascinated because I was expecting a requirements document, exactly like what was actually implemented in the code. But literally, I had to go back and reverse engineer the code in order to understand the requirements. So when I was looking at GitHub Copilot and I was evaluating GitHub Copilot, one of the important feature that stood out for me, and I was able to link it back with my career when I started, was the ability to explain information about the code. So you can open a code file and you can ask Copilot to say, okay, explain me about this code. And it is going to write the explanation in plain text. So there you go. Like if I had Copilot 20 years ago, it would have made my job easier on day one in my first job. So the reason why I highlighted this is like this particular Copilot is going to be really handy for a lot of developers. And that's why we are actually having a discussion about this. So there are also multiple flavors of Copilot, like you have the Copilot and Copilot X. So GitHub Copilot is actually provides the basic functionality of what developers require. And we'll talk about that extensively in the next slide. What is the fundamental differences between these two? Whereas GitHub Copilot X, it's an advanced evolution of GitHub Copilot using the model capabilities like GPT-4 and so on. So what it means is like the GitHub Copilot gives you a chat-based interface, like especially the Copilot X. So it's not about just giving you inline coding suggestions, which will I will showcase like when we get into the demos, what is this inline coding suggestions are all about. But also it provides me a chat interface where I can ask questions and it is going to provide me responses in the form of a chat interface. And also like the Copilot X is much more advanced, right? So what it means is like it can drive AI driven conversations. It is capable of understanding about multiple files, not only just a single file. And also it suggests it can give you proactive coding assistance. So think about Copilot X is an advanced version of your GitHub Copilot. So as I told, one of the key advantage of GitHub Copilot is the ability for it to provide intelligent coding suggestions for developers and improve their productivity. So this is just a quick comparison to showcase what is the features that Copilot supports versus the Copilot X supports. So Copilot and Copilot X both will support the inline auto completion. So you start writing a code in a file or then it will auto complete the code for you. And also when it comes to chat capability, because GitHub Copilot is all about inline code completions, it doesn't support the chat capability, whereas the Copilot X helps people with the chat like a GPT, chat GPT like experience. And this is all happening inside your favorite IDE. Okay. So your GitHub Copilot is not just limited to one particular IDE. You can use that in VS Code. You can use that in Eclipse if you need. So different IDEs, they support integration of GitHub Copilot. So suppose like if you have a scenario where you have to raise a pull request with the help of AI. So where you will have AI generated pull request descriptions and reviews and so on, Copilot X can provide that. As I told you, multi-file context. So Copilot X understands all the files within your project, not just one file, right? So that is something GitHub Copilot is limited with talking about only the current file, whereas Copilot X talks about like it has the context of all the files within your project. So you get debugging assistance with explanations with Copilot X. It can generate unit tests. And this is most fascinating thing when it comes to me personally, right? Uh, I love code, writing code. And also I'm really happy about writing unit tests and because I understand the value of unit tests. But to be honest, when I have to write unit tests, sometimes I feel like, oh my God, like this is going to take a lot of my time. At least the first time, right? When you have to write the unit test. But because I understand the value of unit test, what it can offer, I don't mind writing them. But it is a pain, to be honest. Like as a developer, I know like what it takes to write unit tests. But that's where Copilot X is there to provide you assistance. You give a code and say like, okay, Copilot, can you write the unit test for me for this piece of code? And it will automatically go and write the unit test. And that's another cool thing you get with GitHub Copilot X. The last but not the least is like we talked about everything is about chat, right? So I can ask a question and Copilot will be able to respond. But think about like instead of me writing the question, how can I use my voice to ask the question and Copilot understands my voice control and then it is going to give me a response. And that's what the Copilot X also suggested, not only chat as a medium of taking the input, but also taking voice as a medium of input. And these are some of the key advantages between GitHub Copilot versus GitHub Copilot X. So let us drill down a bit more, right? So when we talk about Copilot, is going to increase developers productivity and because it is going to help us to do variety of things in terms of providing code suggestions or code completions and so on. So let us quickly look at what it really means. So typically like when I want to talk about GitHub Copilot to a lot of developers and people, the first place I will start is how do we start using GitHub Copilot? And my favorite IDE, which is I use is VS Code. And I think quite a few of you will be using VS Code as your IDE. I'm going to quickly pull through VS Code here. So what you are getting to see is Visual Studio Code. So in this Visual Studio Code interface, the first thing if you want to use GitHub Copilot is basically looking at like, okay, how do I incorporate that, right? So if you're new to using GitHub Copilot, first thing is make sure that you sign up and have a GitHub account. So if you can go to github.com and you can sign up for free. So nothing, no credit card, nothing to deal with that. Just to go ahead and sign up. And post that signing up, you can come here into VS Code and you have got what we have got the extensions tab. So people who have used VS Code, you understand like VS Code is a lightweight IDE. So which means it doesn't have everything preloaded for you. So you can pick and choose what functionality you want to add on with VS Code. So here I want to add on that functionality in terms of Copilot. So I can go and search for Copilot. There you go, bingo. Like you have got GitHub Copilot and GitHub Copilot chat. So the first one is let us look at through the GitHub Copilot. So I have already installed this particular extension. And if you haven't installed and if you are new and you have to first thing is you have to do is you have to install the extension and also you can sign up for GitHub Copilot for free here. So once you have done the installation of the extension, you can get to see all the different features that it supports and you are good to use it. And also like you have the GitHub Copilot chat. And this is again, as I said, this is the chat capability that Copilot provides. So one is providing the inline capability. I'll show you a demo of what the inline is all about. And the other one is actually providing you the chat capability where you can instantiate like conversation style questions and answering within Copilot itself. So once you install these two extensions, pretty much you are good to go in terms of using GitHub Copilot. So I'll get back into my Files tab. So here I have got a clean interface with GitHub Copilot as well as the GitHub Copilot chat installed. So that is your what I would say is like a prerequisite. The another way you can also confirm whether I have got GitHub Copilot installed or things like this is the Copilot GitHub Copilot icon, and you can see right at the bottom here, and this will show the status. And so this is going to tell me whether Copilot is actually running fine or not. So that's another advantage I get. So moving on from that, like the first and foremost we are going to look at is how we can use Copilot for coding suggestions and code completions, right? So the key part with the GitHub Copilot is you can think of something that you want to write, right? So I want to write a piece of code and I want some assistance from Copilot. So normally, like if you have to write a piece of code and if you're stuck with the syntax, what do? My go-to place is like either I go and search in Bing or Stack Overflow. And so these are some of the websites where I go and look for ideas around how to implement a piece of code which I'm not comfortable implementing. But now with the help of GitHub Copilot, that makes my life easier because I don't need to navigate away from my IDE. I can pretty much use GitHub Copilot to do write code as well as like complete any of my existing code. And that's what we are going to look at as part of our first demo. Like how can I use GitHub Copilot in VS Code in order to get the necessary coding suggestions. So let us quickly jump onto this demo, right? So when I'm writing or using GitHub Copilot or writing any piece of code, I can pick and choose different programming languages, right? I'm not confined to write code always in C# or always in Python or always in JavaScript. It can be one or the other, or it can be a mix of both or two or three programming languages. The cool thing about GitHub Copilot is it can generate code or provide me coding suggestions for different programming languages, not just restricted to one or two, like as I said, like Python or C#. So there is a whole heap of languages, coding languages it basically supports. And that's another cool thing I like about GitHub Copilot. Okay, so first thing what I'm going to do is, let me write a piece of code. So I'm going to create a new file. and then I'm going to save this file. So what I'm going to do is let me save this file as my Copilot demo.python. So I'll give you an example both in Python as well as C#. So if you're a Python developer, you will also get to know this as well as a C# developer. So as you can see, as soon as I created the Python file, I got a comment here. It says press Control plus I to ask code to do something. There you go. What it really means is Copilot is activated and it is saying like, okay, if you want the Copilot to do something, just to do press Control I. Let us try and do a Control I, right? So there you go, ask Copilot. So this is pretty cool. So now I can ask Copilot whatever I want it to do, and then I can just do things here. So here I have just got a comment, and it said like, okay, I need to write a function to fetch data from an API and pass the JSON response. So which is a common requirement, right? Because these days when you are writing a piece of code, you have to interact with APIs. So I have this piece of code where I have to, like, not even a code, I would say this is just a comment. I just wrote a comment describing what a function I want. So I want a function to be created to fetch data from an API and also pass the JSON response. So now I'm going to go and say like, okay, so let me ask Copilot. There you go. Now I have got a piece of code written. I didn't even write a single line of code, right? So this is a piece of Python code, which is actually Copilot generated code, and that is going to fetch data from an API and pass the JSON request. If I'm happy with the code, I'll just accept it. And as you can see in my Python file, the code is now available. The cool thing about this particular thing is like it's not only wrote the function for me, but also it gave me a piece of code to say like if you want to execute this function, this is the way to go with. So this is the important aspect when it comes to GitHub Copilot. So look at how nicely it has auto written my code, right? One piece of advice, keep in mind, I keep on using the word copilot. It is not an autopilot. So what it really means is like any piece of code that you are getting from GitHub Copilot, it is your responsibility as a developer to validate to see whether it is doing the right thing. So here I said like, okay, I want to navigate, access API and retrieve the responses, and then I should be able to output the responses. And you need to just check whether exactly that's what this piece of code is doing, right? So keep in mind, it is your responsibility to check whatever code that uh, GitHub Copilot is providing. I'm going to do another example in here. Let me do this. And in this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this in C#. So let me go and open a terminal window. Great. So here I'm going to just do a couple of things. One is I'm going to do a .NET new console application. And this particular console application, I will call it as Copilot demo. So I'm creating a new console application project in .NET. So as you can see, it is there. Excellent. So now I'm going to go to this Copilot demo folder. And now I'm going to just do a code dot. So now it is opening up the project in VS Code for me. So as you can notice here, I have got the code piece of code already open here. So here I have got my object file. So this is basically the C# project it created. And also I have got a program.cs. I'm going to remove this piece of code, what is already in there, and save this. So now you can see I have a plain C# project. So previously I showed the example in Python, right? I'm going to do the same thing here. So where I'm going to just say Control I and give the same command. I need a function to fetch the data from an API and also pass the JSON response. Run this. Bingo. So what you are getting to see here is a piece of code written in C#, which is going to help me in terms of querying an API and also the ability to just go through and get the response, right? And this API, I can change it to whatever API URL I require and so on. If you notice here, I don't know whether you are noticing it or not, the first thing that catches up my eyes is the squiggly lines. So under the Newton soft, it knows like, okay, there is no reference to Newton soft here. So are you missing using directive or an assembly reference, which is common like when you're using external packages, you have to reference them. Cool. So how do I go and fix it? And I want that to be fixed with the help of Copilot. So when I mouse over it, you can see fix using Copilot. So I'm going to click on that. And now Copilot is saying to fix the error, you need to install the newtonsoft.json package using NuGet. And this is the command to do that. Excellent. I like this. So I take the command, go to my terminal window, and then I'm going to run this command. And let me see whether that is fixing my error. So the squiggly red color squiggly line should disappear after this. Let us see whether it is happening. The package is getting installed. So now the Newton soft package is completely installed. Did you notice the squiggly lines have disappeared now? And that's exactly what I was talking about. So this is just a simple example to show like not only I can use GitHub Copilot to write pieces of code, but also like when I had an issue with my code, I can ask GitHub Copilot suggestions on how to fix the code. And so keep that in mind like that you can really do that with GitHub Copilot. So this is just a quick, simple example. So we saw an example in Python. Then also I showcased a quick example in C#, just to literally showcase like the capabilities of GitHub Copilot. Cool. So that's our first demo. And without any further delay, let us look at what are the other things basically Copilot supports. So we need to we asked Copilot to a question, and then Copilot was able to do things, right? So what about like Copilot, and how does Copilot basically understands what we are asking and then provides us the responses? So this can be a question like everyone will be thinking, how does it know like to write code in Python? How does it know write code in C#, or even JavaScript, or any programming languages that I'm asking about? So Copilot is actually using the underlying models. So if I want to quickly showcase it to you, let me jump on to the VS Code example that we were playing with. So if I open a new file, so if I do a Control I, so one of the things that you notice here is the models, right? The GPT-4o model, which you can see here, but there are also other models that are available, and the O1 model, O3 mini model, and so on. So these are all the models. We call it as the LLM, or large language models, which are created by OpenAI. So these models are capable of doing all the things that we talked about. So writing code, fixing code, writing code in different programming languages, and so on. So the GPT-4o model, by default, we are using it in GitHub Copilot, but also you can switch to the different models and see like they are capable of writing code. The advantages of these models are trained based on large volumes of data. That's one of the reasons they were called as LLMs. LLM stands for large language models, right? So why it is called large language models? Because these models are large and they have been trained with large volumes of data. So getting back to that original question, so how does GitHub Copilot knows to write things in different programming languages? That's because of this large language models. So the GPT-4o model that is being used. So this model has been trained with a large volume of code bases. So these code bases are coming from the GitHub public repositories. So as you can know, like a lot of people have been using GitHub, there is a lot of code written and available on GitHub. OpenAI, what they have done is they created a model, which is the GPT-4o model, by training data from all these public code repositories. Keep in mind, I'm underlining the word public here, not private GitHub code repositories. Because a lot of organizations, they write their code in a private repository. these models are not trained with any of the organization's code. This is only available where it is like available in public. So it is open sourced pieces of code. So that itself is a huge amount of open source pieces of code available in GitHub. And these models are trained with that particular set of code. And that's why these models are capable of writing code, understanding code, and also knows about the different programming languages and the syntax associated with that. So not only just the code base, but also it has got, it learned a lot of information using publicly available information. But how it knows how to write code is through the GitHub public repositories. So just an important thing to understand, like what is happening behind the scenes when it comes to GitHub Copilot. Okay, so moving on from that. So what we were talking about here is like uh, the GitHub Copilot is capable of not only just understanding a single line, but also multi-file code completion. So if you have to write code that spans across multiple files, it is capable of doing that. And it also understands the context when it comes to, so I can ask a question on a single file or I can ask a question on multiple files. It is capable of understanding the context, saying, okay, are you asking me something to do with this particular JavaScript file or a Python file you are dealing with? Or are you asking about something else? Copilot can work with a variety of programming languages, as I was mentioning. So in the demo itself, I showcased how Copilot can generate the thing for both Python as well as in C Sharp. But as I said, these are two just examples I gave, but there are a variety of programming languages Copilot supports. So when it comes to working with natural language prompts, because this is another thing I talked about, right? With Copilot, GitHub Copilot, you will be able to use natural language programming. What is that? So NLP, like you can use this, you will find people using this acronym called NLP. NLP stands for Natural Language Programming. And this is one of the most powerful aspect when it comes to GitHub Copilot. So if you looked at the first example or demo that I showcased, right? I didn't write anything. I wrote a comment. In the comment, I said like, okay, write me a function in order to query an API and also to evaluate the output that we are receiving from that API. So I have simply described what the function need to be doing, and Copilot went and created the code for that. And think about what it is actually trying to do. So this is now going to bridge the gap between technical and non-technical contributors. And this is going to make collaborations really easier. So if I am a non-technical person, I don't know how to write code, but I know what I need to ask for. So now I can ask a Copilot what I need to ask for in plain English, and then it is going to create the piece of code for me. So this natural language question, like the question that we asked when we put control, I was like what we call it as prompt. Okay, so let me recap this again. So if I go back to my document here, so let me get this. So what I was talking about is like, this is the new text file. So this control I you are saying, right? So when I press the control I, there is this text box which says ask a Copilot. Whatever you're typing in there is what we call it as a prompt. So if you have heard about a lot, when it comes to generative AI or Copilot, writing a prompt is an important part. A prompt is nothing but you are asking Copilot what to do. And if you write the prompt in a better way, Copilot will understand it and it is going to generate you an output. So let us try that, right? So I'm going to ask Copilot to say, write a program to create what do you say, web app resource on Azure. Okay, so this is a simple piece of code prompt I'm giving. So this is what I have written here is what we call it as the prompt. So this is important. So I'm just asking it to write me a program to create a web app resource on Azure. So let me ask a Copilot. Cool. If you look at it, it has written a piece of code and it is like said like I can go ahead and run this code to create it. But oh, okay, this is all good. Do I want to accept that this is what I asked for? But I wanted this code in Bicep Pro though. Like I don't want this hard coded like this. I want a Bicep template. So something is wrong in here. What is wrong? So here I wanted to just say like, okay, maybe it is, I didn't ask specifically, I wanted in Bicep, right? So let me go and change this prompt, right? Bicep code. So here I said the word program, right? So maybe I'll just change it to a Bicep code and see whether it is going to give me in Bicep. So look at that. The code has been now changed to provide me the same thing, but it is written in Bicep. And now I'll accept this so that you can cleanly see the code. There you go. This is Bicep for creating a web app. So Bicep is basically a IAC, which is infrastructure as code. You can provision Azure resources using Bicep. So here I have asked for creating the code in Bicep. So if you remember, what is the fundamental difference between the first prompt and the second prompt I provided? The first prompt, I just said like, okay, write a program to create a web app resource on Azure, right? In the second program, I was more specific. I just specifically mentioned like, okay, write me a Bicep code, because in my mind, when I said write a program, I was expecting Copilot should know I'm asking for Bicep. But Copilot didn't understand that. Copilot just said like, okay, you ask me a program, I give a program in any programming language I know about, because I know Copilot shows like it knows a variety of programming languages. So you have to be more specific in your prompt. So when you are asking a question to Copilot, be more specific around like if you are requesting a piece of code in a particular programming language, or a piece of code where you want the results to be provided in a JSON format or a CSV format, you have to be more specific in your prompt. And that's the technique, we call it as prompt engineering. So prompt engineering is not simple, right? Like it may sound simple for a lot of people. It is all about asking a question, right? But sometimes you have to ask the question in the right way in order to get the desired responses. And that's where prompt engineering can be a bit tricky. So I tell a lot of people prompt engineering is basically an art. It is not a science. So what it means is like you have to practice a lot in order to get well versed with that. And you can do that. Like I can write the first prompt and it didn't give me the desired response. I can tweak the prompt and I can tweak it further in order to get the desired responses. So that's what the technique we call it as the prompt engineering. So getting back to the slides here. So what I was trying to talk about is when it comes to natural language processing, we are effectively writing prompts so that Copilot understands the prompt and it is going to give us the responses. So you have to effectively write good prompts. The second thing is like a Copilot is capable of understanding like how you can use like a description. So I can write a piece of comment, which we saw in the first demo. I wrote a comment and it is able to generate functions based on that. And also it can transform code with artificial intelligence. And that's what we just got to see. Like if you remember the C# program, there was an error and then it was able to like fix the error with the help of Copilot saying like, okay, you have to install that package, and it was able to fix issues with that too. So that's basically what we call it as the natural language format. Again, this plays an important role when it comes to Copilot on how do you pretty much use natural language format in order to get the desired responses. So let us again, we'll go with an example, right? So I always love demos, and when I try to explain these concepts by doing demos, it's always going to be really valuable. Okay, so I'm going to jump back onto my files here just to give me let me go through something. Okay, cool. I have got my VS Code all done. So now we are here. And what I'm going to do is in my Copilot demo file, let me remove this function. What I'm going to do is like how I can ask Copilot to generate an entire function based on the natural language command, right? So I can just go ahead and ask a Copilot to say like, okay, I want in this time we are going to do something called Fibonacci series, and a lot of people know like how to do Fibonacci series, right? So if you want to do Fibonacci series, one of the things that you just to do here is I can ask Copilot and say I want to write a function which calculates the Fibonacci series up to n the version. So go ahead and send this. So look at here, Copilot has actually generated the Fibonacci series for me. And this is again in Python because I already, so one of the cool thing here is, I think this is an interesting question people will tend to ask me. And for my in your previous example, you told you had to specifically mention you want the output in bicep, right? And otherwise like it was giving it in a different programming language. But how when you told here to write, you didn't say like write it in Python, you just said like I need a function to be written in to be written for calculating the Fibonacci sequence, and it wrote it in Python. The clue is here, right? I saved the file as .py file, which is a Python file. So if I have a file extension, Copilot is clever enough to understand that I am in a Python file, which means the expectation is the code has to be written in Python. And the same thing is applicable in C# also. So if I jump back to my C# code, and if I go and remove this, right? And so it's clean, Control I, and I'll put the same prompt in here. So calculate the Fibonacci series sequence up to n. And then if I run this, cool. I didn't say anything, right? Write it in C# or anything, right? So it automatically return it if I accept this. So you can get to see like it automatically did everything for me. And the code is also completed. So we can execute this code, right? So we just we wrote the piece of code, but we never did the do. So I did a .NET run here. So let us see how the code is going to be run. So if you want, you can save that file too. Okay, so the reason is like it talks about like you don't have a main, and this is what I wanted to exactly showcase it to you. So you need to be making sure like you have a proper thing in here. So let us do a .NET run again. Because previously, if you notice, I didn't save the file, right? I issued the .NET run without saving the file just to quickly show you that we will get an error assuming it was trying to build an empty file. But while it was trying to do a .NET run, I went and saved the file, if you noticed that too. The reason for that is I forgot to save the file before I gave the .NET run, but that's why it was running the .NET run against an empty file. But now when I rerun this, because by that time now I have saved the file, now it says like, okay, give me the numbers. Probably I'll say 10. There you go. So this is the Fibonacci sequence all the way up to the 10. So if people know what Fibonacci series is, they will be able to understand that. But even when I was learning programming, right? So in order to do the Fibonacci series, I have to write the piece of code. So I need to understand how to write this entire logic by myself. And so that's where the trick part comes into. Okay, so that's not what is the purpose of this session, right? This particular demo, the focus is more around how you can write a natural language prompt. So writing your prompts in plain English and the ability for Copilot to understand that natural language comment, and it can translate that into code. How well and good is that, right? Like I was so impressed when I saw Copilot because this is going to save my life a lot. If I'm a developer writing code on a daily basis, I can literally see what is the advantage I'm going to get by utilizing GitHub Copilot. Cool. So that was a quick example just to showcase how you generate code for natural language prompts. So the first example was so simple, but if it is like a Fibonacci series or any complex things that you want it to generate, it is capable of generating. So that's what I wanted to quickly talk about. So moving on from that, the next part I wanted to talk about is code refactoring and optimization. So why this is really important and how GitHub Copilot can help you with this. So refactoring is an important part. And what is refactoring? So refactoring is optimizing the code so that you can just maintain clean and efficient code. So for instance, like some of the things I have noticed in a lot of code is they have repeated the same thing multiple times. So sometimes you can abstract that into a function. So function is you write the function once and you can call it multiple times in different places, okay, in the code. But a lot of people, they don't tend to write function. They repeat the same code 10 times, 20 times and stuff. So if you have to change that code in the future, you have to go and change it in 20 different places. And that's what is not what we call it as an ideal code base. And you have to do refactoring of that. So refactoring is an essential part when it comes to maintaining your code base. And it is actually help you to maintain clean and efficient code. And Copilot can help you in assisting with code refactoring. So it can identify any redundant patterns. It can refactor entire code blocks as well as it can also provide optimized solutions. So for instance, it can recommend to you saying, there is a better way of writing this code. Do you want to try this? So mainly Copilot in this case is going to help you to improve performance and maintainability of your code base by helping you to refactor and optimizing code. So just one more point to add when it comes to refactoring. One of the key benefit of Copilot is the ability to suggest modern coding practices. So I think a lot of you would have heard about design patterns and things. So what it is going to tell is like, do you know, like previously we used to write for loop extensively in C# or Python. Now there is a better way of writing for loop. So you can use Copilot to replace inefficient loops with a better way of writing things, whether it is going to be in Python or C# or JavaScript, doesn't matter. And these type of small changes in the code base will definitely have big impact when it comes to performance. And that's what I would say, like you can use Copilot in order to handle code. And the other one is also like defecting and fixing inefficiencies we talked about, right? So if there is a better way of writing a for loop, like Copilot will tell you like optimize your code and it will tell you like, oh, this is a better way you can write code, and it is going to remove all your inefficient code blocks into much more efficient ones. And also like it is going to tell you what is the best practices when it comes to maintaining code quality. So code you can do a lot of things in terms of refactoring, optimization, and so on with the help of Copilot. And another thing with the Copilot, especially the Copilot X, right? So now you have a AI powered assistant, which is going to act as a pair programmer, or what we call it as a coding partner. So this coding partner is going to be a collaborative coding partner. And this is going to be enabled with the help of Copilot chat. So let me explain, as I told you, pair programming, right? So this is a situation where two programmers, they both sit collaboratively and write a piece of code. So where with Copilot, now a GitHub Copilot, one programmer can be replaced with a GitHub Copilot. So which means now a programmer can use the AI, which is like the GitHub Copilot, as another programmer. So they can both collaboratively write a piece of code. And this is going to be great because if you look at the previous slide, right, we talked about Copilot is capable of improve code. Copilot is capable of fixing issues, and Copilot is capable of integrating best practices, right, when it comes to code quality. And with pair programming, that's the benefits that you get. So when you have another piece of when you have a piece of code and which is getting reviewed by another programmer, what you basically get is like that programmer will bring in new perspective to your code. They say like, okay, there are better ways to write this. Why can't we try this way? Or let me help you how to fix this code. Or I learned yesterday about this is the best practice of how to implement this piece of code. So you get a lot of suggestions from your pair programmer. And now think about the GitHub Copilot. It is going to act as a pair programmer and provide you the same suggestions and feedback and assistance that you require. So you will be able to use Copilot as a mechanism in terms of like debugging things, or you're writing test with unit tests, or if you want to get any type of documents to be generated. So for instance, I told you at the beginning of the session itself, like Copilot does a variety of things. So it is going to help me in terms of how to do a lot of things in terms of writing unit tests, and how it helps me with debugging, how it helps me with a lot of pair programming type of things, and so on. So keep that in mind. Copilot helps with refactoring. Copilot helps being like a pair programmer, and it will assist you with a lot of things. So here, another cool thing I wanted to highlight, just to stress on this AI assisted documentation generation, right? So a lot of people are thinking about like, okay, if I want to generate documents, or if I want to get explanation about my code, how do I go about doing that? And of course, Copilot will be able to do that. So you can give a piece of code and it will say, like, you can ask it to explain what this piece of code does. And Copilot is capable of telling you what this piece of code does. And also it helps you to just explain about things. So think about, you have both chat option, you have also voice option, right? So with the voice option, someone is going to explain you in voice, like what is a piece of code does. And this is pretty cool. So I have to explore this to see how cool it will be. And we will be seeing a couple of demos in relation to that. So I'll quickly summarize all these things before we jump onto a series of demos, because each one of this capability, I'm going to showcase it in a demo so that you clearly understand, starting from how Copilot helps with improving existing code, how it helps you to detect any issues or inefficiencies with code and fix it, how can you can use Copilot in order to incorporate best practices to improve the code quality, and how do I use Copilot as a way as a pair programmer. If I want to debug the code, how Copilot is going to assist me. If I have to write unit test, how Copilot is going to assist me. And last but not the least, if I have to generate documentation on my code, how do I able to use Copilot to do that? Cool. So this is all cool, right? So let us get into and dive into a series of demos to look at these capabilities. The first capability that we are going to look at is refactoring and optimizing your code with Copilot. So as usual, we will jump on to using our VS Code. So here I'm going to talk about refactoring aspect, right? So when it comes to refactoring, what it really means is I'm going to write a piece of code and I'm going to expect, let me save this. I'm going to remove this anyhow. So I'm going to write a piece of code myself, and then I want to ask Copilot in order to do the optimization part, right? So let me first write a piece of code. So I'm going to paste this piece of code, and then I have done this. So then I'm going to just say, so I'm going to say optimize this code. So what it has done is, so if you look at it here, I'll redo this again. So because then it's easier for you to understand. So I have wrote a piece of code. So this is what someone gave me, like one of my developer wrote it. So this is, I pasted a piece of code in here, and I know this is an inefficient way of doing. So I created an array, and then I'm just looping it, and then I'm just appending it and to an empty array and so on. So what I'm thinking also is like, okay, let me ask Copilot. So I'm not doing anything other than writing a comment here saying optimize. And if you look at it, it will automatically starting to just tell me some suggestions. So if I say optimize the code above, that's it, a simple piece of command. And then I just press enter. It is giving me a suggestion. If you notice it, it is in gray, right? So if I mouse over it and I say accept, so it will give multiple suggestions too. So you can either do this way or let me mouse over it again. Or I can just use it in this way or this way. So I will say accept. So now as you can see here, it says like Anupama, you can do this in one line. So why do you need to go and type 4 lines of code? So now my 4 lines of code has been optimized and refactored to 1 line of code. And that is pretty cool, right? Okay, let us do this demo. Again, I'm going to try and do this like, okay, is it good enough to do this type of suggestions one day in one programming language? I'll try that in C# also, right? Okay. So here I'm going to go and like take some inefficient code again. So I pasted some inefficient code. Like I have got an array of numbers. I could put up a for each loop and then add it to another list called squares. And so that's it. So I took each value in here. I need to put it in here. All good. So I'm going to say I wrote a better code. So let me ask Copilot whether it can optimize the code in a better way. So I say like, okay, you're talking about you can optimize the code using link. Okay, let me try. Oh, okay. So I have got 7 lines of code here and Copilot is saying, do you know you can do this in 1 line? Now, is it so? Let me tap this and enter. And that's what it is now talking about. It says like, uh, don't worry about this error because I think I still have the old code, right? And that's why it is doing it. But if I remove the old code and okay, so I'll just get the numbers alone. I'll remove this piece of code. You still need that initialization, right? So see, I have an array of numbers and now if I want to put it into a list, I don't need to use a for loop. In using link, it can be done in 1 line. So previously, if I put the paste the code, so you can see I have one to instantiate the list. Then I have for each loop and the syntax of this is that. And there you go. So I have to run these pieces of code. But what I have now done with the help of Copilot is it has reduced me the number of lines of code. And this is the better way of doing refactoring or optimization of your code. So, and this is what the advantage that you get with pair programming. So with pair programming, you basically get assistance from your peers, and one of the things that they help you to do that is suggesting things like this. So they will say like, do you know like in link you can do the same thing in 1 line. And now Copilot has taken up that role in terms of suggesting and telling you what is the best way of writing the optimized version of this particular code. So pretty cool, right? So I enjoy writing this because one of the thing I really love about is how do I write better code and optimize my code and tweak it as I go along. And now Copilot is helping me to do that. So let us take a quick 5-minute break and then we can start on the remaining topics after our break.
Thank you so much, Anupama. Hello, everyone. I hope you can see my screen and hear my voice. I am Sagnik. I take care of product marketing for Microsoft here at Netcom Learning, and I'd like to take over for a brief time before we break over. We go for the break, and we are going to go through the badge redemption process, right? So all the participants today for this masterclass are entitled to official Microsoft Digital Achievement trophies, badges, and certificates from Microsoft, along with the official courseware on AZ2007, which is Accelerate App Development using GitHub Copilot, and AZ204, which is Developing Solutions for Microsoft Azure. So as we are going to go through the process, it's going to be a very simple 3-step process, right? That we're going to follow for each of the 2 courses that I just mentioned. And it's going to barely take you 2 to 3 minutes. So I really recommend that we all get this process over with during this time that we have. And then we are going to go ahead over to the break. So the very first thing that you need to do is look at your GoToWebinar chat window. there would find the link to this particular landing page that is currently visible on your screen, right? So I just wait for 30 seconds. Please locate your GoToWebinar chat window, open that link that is being shared right now, and load up this particular page on either your desktop, your laptop, or your mobile devices. Now, once you are on this page, right, you're going to see this section which says unlock your exclusive Netcom learning advantage, start your Microsoft Azure skilling journey for free. And of course, we are going to be covering GitHub as well as Azure today. So here are the two codes for those two. And these two buttons, right? Redeem your AZ2007 and AZ204. These are the two links that you need to follow. And the same set of steps, these 3 steps are going to be used for each of these 2 links that you see right now on this particular section, right? So we are going to scroll down a little below, a little further, and you're going to see this section now, which says follow these 3 steps. And over here, the very first step, the step 1 is to sign into your Microsoft Learn account, right? You can do that. Once you click on this link, you're going to be redirected to Microsoft Learn. If you already have an existing account, you can use those same credentials to log in. If you don't have an existing account on Microsoft Learn, you can quickly create one in just 30 seconds or a minute by using this particular link, right? Which is highlighted in red. So once you click here, you can create one Microsoft account right away. If you already have an existing account, you can directly sign in and register for Microsoft Learn as well. So in either case, it's going to basically take you another minute or so to go through those couple of steps, easy to follow, and you're going to be done with your account in no time. Now, as soon as you're done with your account, right, you're going to be redirected to step 2. So for those who already have a Microsoft Learn account, if you're already signed in, you are going to straight away be going to step 2 as you click on these links. If you are not signed in or you don't have an account, you have to go through step 1, which wherein you either have to log in or you need to create a new account. Now, once you're done with this, step 2 is very straightforward. You're going to see a prompt like this saying redeem your code, and there's going to be a code, a unique code pre-populated here in this dialog box, right? You don't need to edit it. You won't be able to edit it. You just need to verify that, hey, there is a unique code that is pre-applied here, and just click on the redeem button, which is highlighted in red, right? Simply click on this redeem button. It's going to process for a couple of seconds, and then you are going to see this kind of a prompt saying that we have added your achievements to your profile. So those are the 3 simple steps that you need to follow. Now, once you see this, you can click on view profile and you can switch back to this tab, right, on this particular landing page. And since you have already covered the process for AZ2007, once again, you need to click on this link for AZ204 and go through the same set of steps, right? So once again, you're going to be getting the option to redeem. You're going to click on that and you're going to see once again this particular dialog saying we have added your achievements to your profile. Now that's all that you need to do. Once this is done, you would find all your digital achievement badges, your certificates, your training materials, the official courseware modules, everything available on your profile across the different tabs that are available on your Microsoft Learn profile dashboard. We highly encourage everyone to share your achievements on your LinkedIn profiles, right? It's a way of celebrating your new skills. And don't forget to tag Netcom Learning and Microsoft on your posts for maximum visibility and reach, right? These are issued by Microsoft and they can really add a lot of credibility to your professional profile and in celebrating your learning journey. With that, if you have any questions, please feel free to place them in the chat. We are going to try our best to help you out in the process, and we really recommend everyone completes this process right away so you don't forget on all your benefits. And in case you have any troubles or you don't have time right now, you can always come back and complete these processes right after the masterclass as well, right? So these are three simple steps that you need to follow for each of these two courses, and then you'd have all your benefits unlocked, which are part of today's masterclass. With that, I'd like to announce the break. We're going to have a quick break and we're going to be returning with Anupama for the rest of the session. Thank you so much.
Sure, we are now going to take a 5-minute break, but before we do that, we are going to launch a quick poll that we want to invite you to participate in. Doing so helps us know how we can better serve you by telling us who might be interested in more information or in taking some additional training. In addition, we have a lot more informative webinars coming up, so please go to netcomlearning.com/webinars in order to register.
Welcome back, everyone. So let's continue from where we left off and so continue with some of our topics that we want to discuss further. The next part I want to talk about is the Copilot chat. So what is Copilot chat? And let us talk a little bit about that, because how do I use Copilot chat for a variety of things? So Copilot chat is, like as I said, in Copilot X, you can use Copilot not only for asking inline code, but also like you can ask for a lot of things. So one is like in Copilot, you can use Copilot chat for asking a wide range of questions. Like if I want to debug my piece of code, and if I want to just try things in terms of like asking what the code does, like an explanation of the code or fixing it, you will be able to do that quite easily. So one of the things that you can ask Copilot is real-time assistance. So when you are doing debugging, you can get real-time assistance, or what we call it as immediate help, as you debug the code. Because one of the thing is, like if you get real-time assistance, you will save time and effort and fix the problems. And Copilot is also context aware, because it understands the code, it understands what suggestions need to be made. And think about Copilot is not around just fixing errors, but also it is giving you can use it as a learning tool. And that's an important point I wanted to highlight, because a lot of people, when I describe about GitHub Copilot, right? So they think like, oh, okay, Anupama, like it helps me to sort out a few things, right? Writing documentation, explaining me about the code, fixing my problems, and so on. But quite a few people don't understand that you can use Copilot as a learning tool. I use Copilot as a learning tool. If I don't know something, I'll ask Copilot and ask Copilot, how do I do that? So a classic example, right? How do I write a bicep code to deploy a web app? Let me quickly show you how you can use Copilot as a learning tool. Sorry, I'm just going to deviate a little bit from this topic from the chat, but I want to show how you can use Copilot as a learning tool. So if I'm here, right, I can ask Copilot, like for instance, YAML is yet another markup language, right? Like developers know what YAML files are. So if you are developing pipelines to do deployments, YAML is the language that you go with. And when I started learning about YAML, I didn't know much about YAML, and the syntax of YAML can be tricky. And the pain point for me with YAML is the indentation part. You have to indent things correctly, and if you don't do it, then probably like you will encounter some errors, and you will be struggling to figure out how do I fix those errors. So now with the help of Copilot, I can just say, write me a sample YAML file. So deploy, I'll do a build and deploy, to build and deploy a .NET application, maybe web API. Okay. So think about, I don't know anything about YAML, and I've been tasked to do saying like, okay, write a pipeline to deploy, build and deploy a web application in YAML. So searching in Google documentation and all those things. But one thing I can do is instantly ask Copilot, can you give me a YAML file? And I'm not saying like copy and paste this, but what I'm saying is like you get to learn about, oh, if I have to build a .NET application using YAML, here are the steps. I need to check out the source code. I need to set up .NET. I need to restore all dependencies by running .NET restore. I have to do a build. Then I can do a .NET test, and then finally publish. And once it is published, the app is ready to be deployed. And now I can just deploy it on to Azure. Pretty cool, right? So I have to hand code all these things, especially previously before Copilot was there. Uh, I'm not saying it is difficult, but what I'm saying is it's time consuming, right? And also I have to go to multiple websites to understand the syntax of YAML, how to do that. And when I say indentation, this is what. So you can see here where the push starts, where the branch starts. So you have to properly indent things in YAML. If you don't do that, that is a pain again. But now I can use, if I want to learn YAML, I can use GitHub Copilot as a mechanism for learning new languages or new things or learning best practices and so on. And that's what I wanted to clearly articulate, that you can use Copilot to do that. Sorry, I don't want to deviate from the original discussion that we were having. So the demo that we wanted to look at was how do I use a Copilot chat for debugging purposes, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll jump back to my Python file. And of course, we'll see a demo both in Python as well as in .NET. I'm going to write a function or piece of code here more than a function. So this is I'm going to divide by numbers, and I'm going to say like divide these numbers by 0. So now I have to I know there is a problem with this particular piece of code, and I want going to suggest Copilot to see like is there a problem, and someone tells me uh, there is a problem in this function. Okay, I don't see any problem in this function. What is the problem? Maybe I'll ask Copilot, right? Because Copilot is my pair programmer. So I can check with Copilot to see whether there is a problem with this function. So to instantiate Copilot chat, if you go here and click on here, it says there is a chat interface that has come. Pretty cool, right? So this is Copilot chat. And what it says is like, I am a Copilot chat powered by AI. uh, it has already giving you a disclaimer, and this is what I love about. So mistakes are possible, review the output correctly and before you use. Okay, now I have got this ask Copilot. I'm going to ask people to say what's wrong with this function. And before I do that, right, I'll better save that file. So and then run this. Okay, so Copilot has identified the function divide numbers doesn't handle the case where the divisor is 0, which will cause a 0 division error. So anything that you do with divided by 0, it is going to give you a 0 division error, which can cause exception. You should add error handling to manage this scenario. Here is an updated version of the function with error handling. Okay. So now what I can do is I have got the ability and say apply this to my code file, and I want to accept the change. So it showed me these are the places I have. So it has put a try except block, and it says like if there is a 0 division error, it gracefully handles that exception. So that's what Copilot does. So it is gracefully handling that exception, and what now it will do is my program is not going to crash. So it because the exception is gracefully handled, and it is going to return this message to the user. So pretty much I'm happy. So that's what this chat interface is doing. So then it also provides me this additional context here, right? It says like there is a reference, and it used this as a reference file. So the file it is used where it was looking for issues is this particular file, and it tells me I jumped on and looked your file which you have opened here currently to look for any particular errors, because in my prompt I didn't say anything about the file. I just said like what's wrong with this function. The only thing I mentioned here is focus on the current file, right? And now it gave me the suggestion. So let us try and do this in C# to see whether, okay, does it fix errors only in C# or does it do for both Python as well as C#? Okay, so now I'm going to introduce a function in here. Same function, what we did in Python. So I'm going to save this and say like, okay, I return a function which is like divide numbers. And when I'm calling the function, I am using like 10 by 0, right? So same thing, I'll call Copilot chat. So same thing, I'll ask a different type of prompt. So someone tells me this code is throwing an error. So, okay, I don't know why it is throwing an error. So let me ask Copilot, why is this code throwing an error? And go and ask this. So Copilot is analyzing my program.cs. And what it is saying is the code is throwing an error because it attempts to divide by 0 in the divide numbers method, when the b is 0, the expression will cause a divide by 0 exception. To handle this, you need to add a check to ensure that the b value is not 0 and before you perform the division. So here is an updated version of the code. So if you look at it, they check that the function checks to say if b is 0, throw a exception called divide by 0 exception where it says denominator cannot be 0, and that's what is caught in here. If it is not, if the b value is not equal to 0, then it is going to give me the perform the division. So it also tells you like the code will now throw a divide by 0 exception with a custom message if it is if b value is 0, and the exception will be caught and handled in the try catch block, printing the error message to the console. And this is pretty cool. So if you like this recommendation, you can take it up, or if you don't like this recommendation, you can retry with some suggestions. You can also mark whether it's helpful or not, and you can just say I want to edit this particular thing. So it says like, sorry, I can't assist with that because already I am in Copilot, right? So let us remove this. So the key part to understand here is like the suggestion that it gave. You can pretty much use that suggestion and you will be able to just go with that. So if I rerun this again, if I go back to the chat, rerun this again, just to showcase that output, what it was providing, just one more time. Cool. As you can see, now I can take this piece of code and you can say here, apply to my program.cs. And the another cool thing I really like about this is like it shows me where it made the code changes. I had a simple function here, right? Divide numbers. But think about when you have complex code that has got 100 lines or 150 lines in there. And sometimes it's really good to tell exactly where Copilot is inserting this piece of code, and it highlights each code segment block, and you can accept or remove that. And there you go. Pretty cool. So there I have got everything accepted. Now, see, my code is pretty good in terms of handling exceptions. So I don't want to write a code that is going to crash my application, right? So I want to write a piece of code that is going to make things really easier. And so that is why it is really important that you try and do things quite easy in this way. Pretty cool. So this is a quick examples to show like how the Copilot chat works and how you can use it from a debugging purpose. So you instantiate the chat and then you start asking the question saying, okay, what is wrong with the code? And I want to quickly highlight this because I had a real world scenario about this. So we were, me and my friend, we were looking at, not even my friend, I started looking at the code. There was something wrong, abnormal in there because my testers came back and said, Anupama, like something is wrong with the code because in some scenarios, like it is throwing exceptions, and it would be good if you can look at the code and resolve that. I looked at the code, I tested it many times, and I couldn't figure out what would have gone wrong. And this is before even I knew about GitHub Copilot. So then I thought like, it's nothing wrong in reaching out for help, right? That's what the pair programmer concept is. So I reached out to my friend and said, I had this issue, and the testers told me something is wrong with the code. Not really sure what it is. Like, how do I find that out? And then he introduced me to say like, oh, have you heard about GitHub Copilot? I said, okay. And I know Copilot, but I haven't heard about GitHub Copilot. Okay, I'll show you, Anupama. So he launched Visual Studio, he launched my file, and then he turned on this Copilot chat. And then he said like, okay, Copilot, can you just analyze the issue in this file? And then Copilot analyzed through the code and it told me exactly there was, this is the place where things can go wrong. So just surround this like with the exception block. And exactly like what we saw, right? Divide by 0, you didn't handle it, but at least the divide by 0 was obvious, right? As developer, you would have known about it. But the other thing which I was talking about, I didn't have any clue that particular piece of code will throw an exception in real world scenario. And I accepted that. And then I released a version to my testers and they said, I don't know what you did, Anupama. It was pretty cool. Like now app is not crashing. and we checked the logs, and this is the exception was happening, but still it was handled gracefully. And it was nice to get a pat on the back from the testing team, right? And so that's where Copilot can really help you with that. So it can analyze your code, and it can tell you like what piece of code can go wrong and how you can go about fixing them. So that was a great example I just wanted to share, because what I showed you is not only working in the demo mode or anything, but also in real world scenarios. You can typically use Copilot chat for your debugging purposes. Moving on from that, now I'm going to get to my favorite part of the demo, so which is writing unit test with Copilot. So I think there is a lot of developers who are like attending this particular webinar. Like, you will get to know what I'm talking about, right? Unit tests and what it takes to write unit tests. And definitely I'm not against unit tests, because I love unit tests, because the advantage it gives, like how I can identify errors early in the stage of my code. And I don't want to release my code to a tester and the tester pointing me. One thing I really hate as a developer personally, right? Someone finding fault in my code. It's not that like, oh, see, people tend to make mistakes. It's not like we are not always going to be superhuman and perfect, right? But I can avoid silly mistakes. So I don't want testers to find bugs so obviously. So I want to give them a challenge, right? So if you have to find a bug, it has to be really difficult to find a bug in my code. And that's where unit test comes into picture, because you can use unit test to better improvise your code, and which means it is going to be, you're going to test your code much more before even you release it to the testing team, and which means it gets going to be really tough for them to find a bug. And that's the challenge I want to position to my testing team, to say like, okay, here is my piece of code, find a bug. If you find a bug, I will give you a kudos for that. But if you can't find the bug, then I'll give a kudos to myself. And that's where unit test comes into picture, on how you can use it to write better code. And in here, what we are going to discuss it, how you can write unit test with the help of Copilot. So let us jump on to our demo again, right? Cool. So this time I'll do a different way. I'll do C# first, and then we'll jump into the Python part. So what are we planning to do here? I'm going to write a piece of function, and then we are going to write a code. So let me Control Z. So I'm just getting into the basic part of that, because I've been playing with this a lot, right? Okay, let us keep this with the static, the program file, because I'm not going to use this program file, so don't worry about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file, and I'll call this as matutils.cs. So in this utils file, I'm going to write a piece of code which is going to create a function. So this is a piece of code where I have got a method called the class is like mathutils, and then I have a piece of function which is add numbers, which is getting an input of two numbers, and I'm adding it, and then multiply numbers, getting again an input of two numbers and multiplying it. Great. I'll save all. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my terminal. So now I need to create a unit test for this, and then I have to just go ahead and do certain things in here. So first thing is I'm going to go and add a bit of unit test, and so I'll just create so I'm going to use the X unit, and let me check what it is doing. Cool. So it has created a unit test project. So then I'll open this unit test.cs, and so basically it has got some information in here. So what I'm going to do is I'll get into Close this, close this. Okay, so I'll get into CD unit test. So I want to get into that folder. And then I'm going to add a reference, because if you look at the unit test, again, you get that squiggly line. Because I haven't, I need to make sure like it is referencing things, and it also uses in unit. So what I'll do is I'll add reference to the projects. Oh, okay, yeah. So I need to just go back to this. So I have to look at the Copilot demo project. And because this is inside in here, so I can just say, I can go ahead and add a project. So we'll do it in a better way, right? So I'm going to clear this off just to make it easier for you to understand. So let me delete this. Cool. I'll also clear this. Okay, so still we have this particular part in here. So what I'm going to do is rather than, because this is already a Copilot demo project that we have created. So if I go into the file system, just to give me a sec. Just I wanted to show you how does it look in your file system. Okay, so this is how it looks in the file system. So I have a Copilot demo folder, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another VS Code. So this is basically showcasing so that we can create another project in order to, like, this is for unit testing purposes, right? So what we can do is we can just quickly jump on to create a new project. And in that new project, we will be able to go ahead and just add whatever capability that we really require. Okay, so I'll go into my file. I'll go to open folder. And here I'm going to use my D demos. So you can see I have got a Python file in my D demos and also like a Copilot demo. That's all good. So now I'll go and open up a terminal window. Cool. So I'm going to go back into my demo project. So here, what I'm going to do is I want to create unit test project. So I want to create a unit test project at this level, and then we will do in terms of how can you make it to write unit test. So let me run this. So I'll say, so now you can see the Copilot demo unit test, right? So then I'm going to expand this. So it has got the namespace and everything in here. Cool. So that's all good. And I'm going to also use so just to make it easier, so it uses XUnit. Cool, that's fine. So the unit test has been done. So what I'm going to do next is like around, if I have to do this, I will go to the unit test project now. So Copilot demo unit test. Okay, cool. So now I'm in this one and I have to reference my other project, right? So the other project is Copilot demo project. So let me add the reference. Cool. So now my unit test project is referencing my Copilot demo project. Great. So this is all good. And now I have to get into the unit test project. And I have got test one, right? So what I'm going to do is like I'm going to remove all these things. So where I have just got pieces of code, right? So this is actually saying like, okay, I'm writing a fact unit test. I said like, okay, you don't do anything. I will just think about like, so how do I get a unit test return? So if you start here, it is automatically trying to give me some suggestions. I will be just saying, get me stuff saying generate unit test format utils class. So what I'm getting is like I'm asking it to create a unit test for max util class, and we'll see whether it is going to suggest me anything. So nothing, right? So because this is not suggesting me anything, let me save the file first. Okay, so what we are trying to do here is like we are going to go and write the unit test. And then what we want is like, okay, I want this to write a unit test for me for my maths util class. So what I can do is two things I can do. One is I can go back and just get Copilot to say, okay, add unit test for the maths utils class. Okay, so it says like I need to see the maths util class, right? So I can just go to Copilot and I can just say this is the maths util class, and then I can say to Copilot, here it is. Excellent. So if you can see here, I can now just to go back to my unit test project and say, I'll put the cursor here so that I know exactly, or maybe let us replace this, right? And now I can say, so now I have got the entire unit test available. So if you notice here, it has returned the unit test in terms of like a testing to add numbers. And then it is like a testing to multiply numbers, because these are the two things I had. And I'm able to just do this. And now I can save these files. And if I go back to terminal, so now I can just say, if I want to run this, like I can run the unit test also by running the .NET run, and I can run my particular test project. So the key point here to highlight here is more than running it, just to say how quickly I was able to write the unit test. I can ask also Copilot, can you add more assets? So as you can see here, I want to add a bit more asset scenarios in here. So let me show you what it is. So if I go back and say replace this for me. So there you go. So previously it was just giving me assertion on only one example, but I wanted to actually say what is the result is going to be if I pass a -1 and 1. What if it is going to be 0 0? What if it is going to be negative two negative numbers? So two positive numbers, one positive, one negative, both are zeros, both are negative. So it is now using a few assertions here just to showcase like, okay, a few combinations are being tested and how it is going to give me responses in relation to that. And also with the multiply numbers, it says like, okay, what would be the result if I multiply two positive numbers, or one positive, one negative, or if it is 1 0 and one positive, and then two negative. So all the combinations, right? Pretty much like you can keep on refining the chart to get all the different combinations. So not even a single line of code I wrote here. I would just ask a Copilot to say like, oh, okay, um, I can even say, can you add an assertion for yeah, so we have got one positive, one negative, both negatives. Oh yeah, I think almost all the scenarios are covered. So I was thinking like there was some scenario that was missed, but Copilot is clever enough, right? It creates a unit test for me for all the scenarios. And this is what I like about. So I can write the main function again with the help of Copilot, and I can direct that main function to Copilot to say, now you go ahead and write the appropriate unit tests that are applicable for my main function. And Copilot is capable of doing that. Okay, so we always do things like one in Python and then one in basically what we do is in multiple languages, we do Python as well as in C#, right? So let us do the Python option also. Let me save all my stuff. So we have the Python file. So this is our Python file that we created. And now what I'm going to do is like just going and adding an example here. So where we are going to do unit test within Python. So we saw like how it is easy it is to in C#. So what we can do is like we can create a separate file. So first is I will create a new file and yeah, I'll create a new text file. So then I'm going to save this file in my demos and I'm going to call it as all files. And then I'm going to call it as Copilot. So in this case, I'm going to use it as Copilot demo. .python, but this is like a test Copilot demo, right? So let us save this file. So I have got a demo Copilot and also a test demo Copilot. So what I'm going to do is in this demo Copilot, I'm replacing this with a couple of functions. Same thing like what we had before, like add numbers and multiply numbers. And then in the separate file, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import the necessary things around math utils and stuff. Okay, so this is where I will also show you code, how do we use side by side. Let me talk a new terminal. So it is saying like the issue in the file is related to the import statement. And so it says like you should be using this and it should resolve the issue. So what we did is math utils and it couldn't be resolved because we couldn't call, there is a file called math utils, but we call it as Copilot demo. So, okay, let us use the Copilot demo. Excellent. So now it fixed the error, right? So it was like saying you are referencing some module which doesn't exist. Now Copilot demo exists. So what do you want me to do next? So, okay, so let us ask Copilot to generate unit test, right? I'm going to this time do it based on a comment. So basically I'm saying asking Copilot to generate a unit test based on my command, generate unit test for my add numbers and multiply numbers. And there you go. Cool, right? So now I can tab it and now I got my unit test done. So here it has written unit test to say like, okay, for test add numbers as well as the test multiply numbers. So, and also I tried adding a few assertions and it also matched it to see how this is going to work. And here, this is a classic way of how you can write unit tests without writing single line of code, but also like everything is done with the help of like a Copilot itself. So I think, did I wow you or not? Especially I was wowed when someone did this demo for me on how easy it is to now write unit tests using Copilot. And I love GitHub Copilot now because I think it solves a lot of problems for me, like where my productivity is substantially like improved because of Copilot. Like it helps me to fix errors, it helps me to debug things, and the icing on the cake is the ability to write unit test with the help of Copilot. So we saw how to write unit test with Copilot. And this is like making sure I showed you a demonstration both in inline as well as in the chat interface. And how do you go about writing unit test? And if you want to tweak the unit test, like or if I want to refine the unit test that was provided by Copilot, how I can follow write questions and ask for follow-ups and so on. And Copilot will be able to do that. The next demo I want to talk about is how to use Copilot in pair programming mode. So let us quickly look at a demonstration on how do we use Copilot in pair programming mode. So I talked about at the beginning of this session itself, like pair programming is an important concept where it is going to add value when two people are writing the same piece of code or looking at one person writing it, one person looking at it. They can contribute and provide feedback on how to write better code, right? So that is what pair programming pretty much influences. So the key thing is all about like how do I go about writing better code with the help of pair programming. So I want to just walk you through this with a demonstration. So how you can use GitHub Copilot in order to efficiently use pair programming, right? Cool. So let us quickly look at this demo. So I'm going to again jump on to my Visual Studio, the VS Code, basically the light version of Visual Studio. So let me close this all down. Okay, so we'll start again with two examples. One is in Python, the other one is in C#. So I'm going to open a new chat and close it now. If I need the chat, I will use it. Great. So when it comes to pair programming, I'm going to just start with a new file. And this time I'm going to just call the file as, let me save it. And that's one thing I really like about is always I love to save my files before I go further with that. So I don't want to lose my work, right? I will use string utils.python. So this is basically, I'm going to build a utility function for string in Python, right? So here I'm going to go ahead and write a piece of code. Okay, let me go ahead and write a piece of code. So I have written a piece of code where I want to reverse a string, right? I take an input as a string, and what I want to make sure is reverse the string. And what I want to make sure is I'm happy with the code. It is working as expected. And what should I need to worry about? So then I thought like, okay, so if I had a pair programmer, I always ask for my pair programmer's opinion, right? So what do you think about it? So what I'm doing is I'm going to save this and say like, okay, if it is a person, I can ask the person, but now I don't have a person. I have my Copilot. So going to ask Copilot to say like, okay, can you optimize this code further? So I'm thinking this is the maximum I could optimize the code. Can I ask Copilot to see whether it can optimize it further? And it says, sure, you can optimize the function by using the Python slicing feature. Oh, I didn't know about that, which is more efficient and concise. Here is the optimized version of the code. Okay, this is looking better. So I'll go here and just say apply to my function. There you go. So now it has turned my how many 5 lines of code into 2 lines. One is actually the function definition, and then the other one is just using the slice feature in Python code. I'm more curious to see, can you explain me more about the Python slicing feature? Because I didn't know that. And if I'm learning Python, right, it's a good way. And says like, oh, okay, slicing is a feature that allows you to extract a portion of a sequence by specifying a start, stop, and a step value. And this is the syntax. And it is also gives me some examples. Excellent. So thumbs up for that. So see, as you can see, I'm also learning at the same time. If I want to try something and if I'm not sure about what is the better way of doing it, Copilot suggests me how to write an optimized version of my code. And not only that, but also like if I ask some follow-up questions, it is going to provide me the same thing in terms of how you better write it. Okay, this is all good. And I love my C# also, right? Because I come from my C# background. I go to this program.file and I'm going to write a function. Let me take this out. Oh, let it sit in here. That's not a problem. So here I'm going to write a function which is going to provide me a piece of code. Yeah, I'm a bit touchy when it comes to laying out my code. Great. So I can close this, and if I want a new thing. So I'm dealing with this new file. I'm saving this. Again, it's good to ask the opinion from Copilot to say, can you optimize my reverse? Because I'm more interested in the reverse string function. I'm asking Copilot, just say like, can you optimize my reverse string function? And it is now writing, and okay, I'm more interested in the reverse string function. Oh, cool. So it is actually using a string builder object, which is much more efficient, because when you are using a string builder function, it is going to be efficient than like normally concatenating things. That is always good in terms of like doing it. And so this is basically using string builder so that like it is more efficient than concatenating strings in a loop, because otherwise it will take up a lot of memory. And so there you go. So now I can just use it. Is there any other alternate way you could optimize the reverse string function? So I'm asking like because it's always good, right? Like there are more than one way of writing code, and we all know about it. One of the thing I wanted to make sure is there any other alternate function way of we can optimize this? Oh, okay. There is another way of optimizing it. There you go. So this is much more crisp and clean, right? Rather than a string builder function. Saying another way to use is the to-char array method and the array dot reverse method. And I say like which you think is more efficient? Is it the string builder method or the to-char array method? Because I'm not sure. So let me ask Copilot. Okay, so what says is both are efficient, but the to-char method is generally more efficient and concise for reversing a string. Okay, I'll accept it. And sometimes I can also test it, right? So I can test both the things, how long it takes and what is the output I'm getting. And now I can apply this piece of code to the file. And there you go. So now it's just going to accept it. So now my piece of code has now optimized in here. So what we basically did in pair programming mode, we asked a Copilot chat for optimizations. We received AI-driven decisions and suggestions for refactoring. We applied and we looked at like the better way how it has optimized. So this is how you can use like GitHub Copilot as a AI assisted pair programmer. So we asked, right, there are I asked Copilot like, is there a better way of optimizing this function? Can we optimize it a bit more? or just to tell me like what is the best way to do that. And if you are suggesting me multiple ways, can you tell me out of the two ways which is the best optimized method I should be using? So I can even go on a little bit about here to say, uh, can you give me more examples about or on the two char array? Sure. So here it shows like how to reverse a string. So, and then it is also talks about counting vowels in a string using two char array, and then removing white space from a string. So two char array, you can use that in different ways to manipulate strings in C#, something I newly learned, right? So this is what I pretty much like about GitHub Copilot. It is context aware, and that part is really powerful here. So when we say context aware, pretty much it understands like what is the file it is dealing with, how do we ask the relevant questions, and then that is going to, and Copilot understands you're asking these questions in the context of this file. And that's what you get to see here. This is the context of the file that you are dealing with. And if I go back to a new terminal, see, these are some of the things that you can use. The /fix to fix problems in the code, /test to add unit tests for your code. So if you're in a particular file and you have a function, you don't need to go and ask for, please write unit test for me. You can just say /test and it will write the unit test for you. And if you say /explain, it will explain how a selected piece of code works. So let me ask how to explain the Fibonacci series, right? I block this, say, code and say /explain. So it understood what the piece of code I've highlighted in here, right? And it is explaining me what is Fibonacci means. And it is just explaining me what this piece of code actually does. So if you are, and this is the one I was talking about, the documentation part, right? If you remember, like the example which I quoted, that in my first job I was being given a piece of code rather than giving me any documentation, and they said this is what your documentation is all about. So now I can use Copilot to say mark any particular piece of code and ask for, can you explain a little bit about this code in plain text? And this is now explaining me in plain English around what this particular piece of code does. So we saw a variety of examples in here, right? So how you can use Copilot as a pair programmer, how you can ask it to fix bugs, how you can you can use it as a learning tool also. And these are some of the key important aspects that you need to understand when it comes to GitHub Copilot. So beyond the default functionality, you can also customize GitHub Copilot for specific workflows. So you can, as I showed you in VS Code, right? You can fine tune a lot of things. You can try enabling a lot of experimental features in there. And you can also use Copilot with extensions, a lot of other extensions, third-party extensions or VS Code extensions. And also you can personalize AI responses. So if you want to use like coding styles with the different tools, you can integrate them with Copilot. And also like you can just adjust Copilot settings. You can enable advanced features, integrate with other tools. So in that way, you can make Copilot as a great personalized experience for a lot of people so that they can use AI in their development process. And I told you I'll talk about some of the best practices that you for power users, especially when you use a GitHub Copilot. Even though GitHub Copilot is a powerful tool, and I think over the last couple of hours, like I've been going through a lot of demos to showcase the power of GitHub Copilot, but you have to always use it in a responsible fashion. So what it really means. The AI generated code should be always reviewed for accuracy, efficiency, and security, right? So it is writing the code. You can't just copy and paste the code like what I did in the demo. So I have to make sure what is the package, if it is using some external or third-party packages, what packages it is using, or even ask Copilot, is there any vulnerabilities in these packages, or is there a better package I can use than what you have suggested? So you have to validate the responses that you are getting from GitHub Copilot. And also you should be mindful of some of the biases that AI generated suggestions can give. So you have to avoid these biases in the AI generation code. And always the recommendation I give to people is use Copilot as an assistant rather than replacement for critical thinking. So critical thinking still is the developers have to apply, and use Copilot as an assistant. So ask it to write a draft code, ask it to write what are the different ways of how I can write the same code. This is all okay, but every piece of code it is writing, you have to find a way whether is this the optimized version of the code, and also does it meet my organization coding standards. So these are all important aspects that you have to consider. So so let me quickly summarize like what we have been talking about in this particular webinar, right? So we talked about how do you use GitHub Copilot, like the extensions, how do you turn on those extensions in VS Code. And also we looked at various aspects in terms of how do you go about to use GitHub Copilot to get coding suggestions, make it to write code, make it to optimize and refactor code, write unit test, how do you fix bugs using Copilot, and also how you can use a Copilot as the pair programmer in a more efficient way. So I think that's pretty much what I really wanted to cover on GitHub Copilot in today's session. But as I promised, here are the links that are available where you can use these links in order to learn a little bit more about Copilot. So for instance, like if you want to learn about Copilot and you want to have a better way in terms of how do I use Copilot in order to get some better outcomes, you will be able to do that efficiently using these links. And these links are nothing but they are links that are coming from what I call it as the Microsoft Learn website. So it has clearly articulated. So make use of these links and just get better equipped with Copilot. So I think that's pretty much what I wanted to cover as part of today's session. Just to quickly wrap it up. So certifications is always an important part, right? I can learn about a lot of concepts, but I think the next step after learning is getting Microsoft certified. And Microsoft and they emphasize this a lot with all of their partners, their customers, and here at Netcom, like we help facilitating learners to learn more about Microsoft technologies with a variety of ways. This webinar is one fashion, and also there is a lot of instructor-led training courses that are available, which you can make use of in order to skill up yourself. And personally, learning is an ongoing process. It's not that okay, I took the course 5 years ago and I don't need to take any more courses. I learn each and every day, and the technology changes a lot, and you have to keep up to date with the technologies. So these are some of the benefits of the certification. So it makes you to stand out. So certified employees, they get greater recognition skills because they are validating their skills and they are keeping up to date, right? And also they earn. So it's not about just recognition, but also from a monetary perspective, they are earning 23% more. And so with all the all the certifications that they have got. And also if you have certifications, especially the cloud certifications, there is a lot of employment opportunities. And also if you want to have career progressions, like by having certifications, that is going to provide you that. Another cool thing is you will be able to broadcast your certification skills by taking up certification trainings. So for instance, if I finish a GitHub training, or if I finish a AZ 305 training, I can immediately use the Microsoft badge to showcase it on my social media channels. And so I let others know, not only my peers, but also my other employers to know that I am certified and I have the right skills in order to perform some of these roles effectively. And that is basically the way. And also, if employers are looking for a specific set of skill set, having certifications is going to provide that validation also. So let us make the data to speak, right? So this is an important aspect. Why certifications are important, why training is really important, because everyone is busy these days. Like we don't have our personal time to allocate to go and look for on demand courses and things. So by just getting into a instructor led training session, so where you are, first thing is allocating some time in order to learn about the technologies in our busy world, and also like the ability for you to learn about these topics from the experts, because sometimes we may not have all the experience in all the different technologies, and that's where netcom bring in their expert trainers to train you, where you will be able to learn from these experts from their real world experiences, like what worked, what didn't work, and they will share all these things as part of the training sessions. So both the organization as well as the employees within the organization, they are going to benefit with the help of certifications. And just one more thing to add on is like the well-trained and certified teams are almost 20% more productive than other staff. So what I covered here in the 2 hours is a glimpse of like what GitHub Copilot could offer, right? But come and take up the training sessions on GitHub Copilot. So we can tailor training sessions based on your organization needs at Netcom. So whether it's a 1 day session you want or a couple of days session to deep dive into GitHub Copilot on various aspects, or bringing your code and see like how you can refactor or like get optimization techniques, apply optimization techniques from Copilot to apply to your code, you'll be able to do that. So grow your business and career by taking up role-based certification trainings. And this is basically an instructor-led classroom training available both like we provide virtual trainings and if required in-person trainings too. And virtual trainings provide you the convenience, like you can take the training from wherever you are without the need of traveling. So as I told with Netcom, the key highlights is like there is a lot of interactive discussions that happens in the instructor-led training sessions, where there is a discussions about real-world use cases, and also that Microsoft certified trainers like me, we can bring in our expertise in your domain. And also you get 180-day access to extensive virtual labs. All the labs are available for you to practice during the class, and also you can take it outside the class so that you can master on your Microsoft skills. And also you get a 90-day access to the recordings of your instructor-led class. And this is another add-on which Netcom provides you, which I personally like about, because even though we have allocated 2 days or 3 days for training, but sometimes like we get pulled over for a quick support or something during the class. So what if I miss a 1 hour class? I have a 90-day access to all the class recordings, right? I'll be able to go back and replay and see what I missed during that hour. And also you get access to a Netcom 365 learner portal. So all the courses that you take with Netcom, everything will be available in the student portal, and you will be clearly inducted on how to use the student portal through the extensive experts we have available in Netcom. And through the learners portal, you can see your classes, future classes that you are planned to attend, as well as any classes that you have attended previously, along with the access to the 180-day lab access and the 90-day recorded video access, your course content, additional resources which the trainers provide, everything is available there. And also like you get a 24/7 priority support. So through the learner portal, you can reach out to the Netcom people, like whether it is the client support people or technical expert that you need to reach out to. Everyone contact details is available for you to reach out to as part of the student portal. So make sure it's not about just getting the certification for the first time. You have to keep your certifications up to date. And also like it is always good to go back and recheck on whether anything new has come with these technologies, whether I have to just upskill myself. And this renewal process is Microsoft made it really simple. You get the certification for the first time, the renewal process is going to be once a year. You have to take up some questions online for free, and then you keep your certification renewed. So I would say like Microsoft even sends you like 6 months before the renewal time, and also closer to the renewal time, frequent notification emails alerting you to renew your certification. Because if you renew the certification, you can do it for free within that duration. But if you missed to renew the certification, you have to take up that exam again by paying a exam fee. So keep in mind, once you get certified for the first time, keep renewing it every year, so to keep your certification up to date. So let us all get trained and certified. So any Microsoft courses or any type of cloud courses that you want to take, just check our Netcom Learning website and just book a training session, or reach out to us if you want any customized training that you need for your organizations, and our training managers can like pretty much help you with that. So with that note, thanks for spending the time with me attending this webinar. Hope you would have enjoyed learning about GitHub Copilot and how you can use it as a AI code partner, and looking forward to meet you all in future sessions. And as I said, yeah, get trained and get certified. Thank you.
Thank you, Anupama. That was very informative. I know everyone is looking forward to the Q&A session, so go ahead and start putting your questions into the questions panel. And while you do that, I would like to give the presentation rights over to Sagnik, our vendor manager, to introduce you to our promotions and webinar-related courses.
So as you can see on my screen, this is the event handout that you all have received. Once again, we thank you all for taking out the time and joining our masterclass today. As part of this handout, you'd see the content section wherein the different sections within the document have been listed here, and everything is hyperlinked. So you can quickly use these links to jump to the specific section of the document. Before we proceed, it's worth mentioning that Netcom Learning, we are the proud winners of the Microsoft Partner of the Year award for 2 years in a row. So as we say, the legacy continues. In 2022, we were the Partner of the Year worldwide, and in 2023, we were the Partner of the Year for United States. And we are also a Microsoft Cloud Solutions partner. That means that we have capabilities across all the 6 solution areas recognized by Microsoft. A few more things about us. We are in the training industry for over 25 years now, having serviced over 80% of the Fortune 1000 companies, serviced 100 plus US military bases. Overall, we have trained 1 million plus professionals across 36,000 plus unique enterprises, and we enjoy a 96% recommendation rate from our customers. All our trainings on Microsoft are delivered by instructors that are certified and authorized by Microsoft. And our overall instructor pool stands at about 3,200 plus certified professionals. We are your one-stop solution for all your corporate upskilling needs with official training across every major technology and business solution provider. So as we can see over here, we are an authorized training partner for all the industry leaders across Microsoft, AWS, Cisco, CompTIA, EMI, EC Council, and others. Now, within this handout, you'd also find this particular page wherein you can find the session recording. You can use the link to access the recording for today's session and revisit the concepts that were covered in today's masterclass. Also, all the participants will be given access to Netcom 365. It is our student portal that includes a lot of features and resources for you to take advantage of to supercharge your skilling journey. All you need to do if you're accessing it and activating it for the first time is set up your password and then you'd be good to go. We highly recommend everyone to explore our learning portal to take full advantage of all your skilling resources. Now let's quickly take a look at some of the latest offers on Microsoft trainings and certifications. First off, we have the Microsoft Quick Start program, which is applicable across the entire portfolio, encompassing Azure, Security, Microsoft 365, Dynamics 365, and Power Platform. It is truly the best in class exclusive enterprise discount offering on your end-to-end Microsoft training across the official portfolio. The pricing model is quite simple and straightforward. If you have a team if whether you are a large organization or a small organization, and you have a team to train across departments or within the same department, we have two options for you depending on your team size. If you are looking to train more than 15 learners, you would be getting a flat discounted pricing of $300 per day per learner. And of course, as the number of days for the particular training increases, the the amount also increases, but you get significant savings on this. If you are having a smaller team, that is 14 learners or less, then you still are entitled to a $400 discounted flat pricing per day per learner. This really accounts to huge savings when it comes to large scale training. So we highly recommend everyone to get in touch with us, explore the offering by clicking on the link provided in this handout. And all your trainings can also be customized based on the specific projects and workloads that you and your team, your organization is working on. And our industry specific subject matter expertise encompasses a wide range of verticals, as you can see over here, from banking and financial services, healthcare, federal and state and local government, to education, energy, manufacturing, retail, consumer goods, and more. Also, you'd find that if you have a team, if you are a big organization or a small organization, having a team that you're looking to train, our 2-hour private group training demo is also a great option for you as the next step. It is free of cost, as we say, you can see over here, and it is customizable as per your needs. So rather than a public delivery, which was the format of today's session, you're going to get a private group training wherein our instructor is going to connect with you, understand your specific requirements, and our learning consultants are going to map out your specific needs and accordingly tailor the skilling plan that makes sense for you and your business. So these training demos are provide a great value because these are customizable. All the trainings are delivered by our top rated trainers, and you get a complimentary skilling plan consultation, allowing you to get clarity on which specific courses are needed to be taken by your team. And in case you are a large organization, you are a multi-shore firm with multiple divisions and your workforce spread across geographies, or you have multiple business units within the same organization, the skilling needs kind of get complicated in those scenarios, right? But how do you manage your training funds in that case? And that's why we have the Learning Passport, which provides a flexible team training package. Basically, you park all your training funds with us for 12 months. And within these 12 months, you get exceptional value on the funds that you invest, right? Up to 100% increase of your fund value is what you can experience with our Learning Passport. And these funds are flexible. That means you can use it to train irrespective of the individual that you want to opt in for. A simple distinction with the Netcom Plus is that it is mapped to the specific learner and it is only valid for that learner. But in Learning Passport, you get that additional flexibility that for one particular course, you can pick one particular learner, and for another, you can use your same training dollars for another course. This is basically giving you unlimited access to our entire authorized training portfolio of 4,000 plus official courses. So we highly recommend you to check this out if you have such skilling requirements, especially keeping in mind that the end of the year is coming, and we are aware that organizations need to finalize their training budgets. If they don't use it, they kind of lose it. So this is an ideal solution for you guys to park your training funds and make sure you get the ultimate value all year round. Now we will take a look at the recommended courses that we have. Over here, you can see the courses that are related to today's topic have been mapped here, divided by fundamentals and role-based. So we highly recommend everyone to click on these links. All of these are hyperlinked. pick the item that you want to explore, and you'd be redirected to the official documentation that we have on these particular courses. Also, please note that all the courses that are delivered by Netcom Learning are delivered by subject matter experts. You get additional perks like 180 days access to virtual labs wherever applicable. Also, you get access to 90 days to the class recordings to revisit the concepts. You get full access to our Netcom 365 portal, as well as you can repeat the classes free of cost within a specified duration if you want to revisit or you couldn't attend the first time. We also have a couple of free resources mapped here, like our upcoming free event and a blog. We highly recommend you to explore those as well. With that, I'd like to thank everyone. Do follow us on our social handles, and we hope to see you soon once again on one of our events and classes. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much for guiding us through that information, Sagnik. And now we're going to go ahead and jump right into our question and answer session. Our first question is, what is the key difference between GitHub Copilot and Copilot X?
Nothing major difference. One is basically providing suggestions with inline code, and the other one is actually complementing that with a AI powered chat interface. That is the chat interface we saw, which is multi-file context aware, and also like it helps in a lot of other things like pull request automation and so on.
Our second question is, how can developers improve Copilot's code suggestions?
You can always ask Copilot to write clear and concise output. And to make Copilot to do that, first thing is you have to write clear and structured commands. So basically telling exactly Copilot what is your desired output that you are looking for. And always provide meaningful names for functions and variables, which is part of the coding practice, but you tend to see people forget that. But if you provide meaningful function names and variable names, that is going to help to give context to Copilot. And leverage the Copilot chat. It's not that the first time it gives you a code that you have to settle with that. You can always ask Copilot chat, like how I asked, is this the only way you can optimize, or is there better ways to optimize the code? So just to go ahead and check with Copilot around that.
Our third question is, what are some best practices when using GitHub Copilot for AI-assisted coding?
Always review AI generated code and use Copilot as an assistant, as I said, not as a replacement for coding skills. And try to refactor and optimize even if it is an AI generated code, check with that to say, is there better ways of optimizing it or not? And if not, you can also eyeball it to see whether you can optimize it in a better way to ensure maintainability. And also avoid over reliance on AI, and make sure there is a manual verification done before you deploy the code. So it's not about copying and pasting and deploying it straight away. Any code that you are going to deploy, before you deploy, make sure you eyeball it, especially if it is generated by AI.
Our last question is, how does Copilot Chat assist in debugging and refactoring code?
And as I said, Copilot Chat is all about asking questions in natural language format, right? So ask it to analyze the code, ask it to fix the bug in the code, ask it to rewrite any inefficient code, or ask it to provide alternate coding suggestions. So these are all the things that you can use in both for debugging and refactoring code with Copilot Chat.
Once again, I want to remind you that as you leave the session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to help us by taking a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience as we are constantly looking at how we can improve our future sessions. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. We want to thank all of you for joining us today, and if you do come up with any additional questions, feel free to send them to webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. We hope that you found today's webinar informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us soon. Feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Have a great day, everyone.